Devon, welcome to the Queer Divorce Club podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and spill my story.
I'm excited to hear about it. To get us started, can you give us a little bit of a background on your story? Where are you at in the divorce process, and where are you at today?
Okay. Well, I am about 8 years post-divorce. So very much through it and at a very good place with co-parenting with my ex-wife. Um, as far as my background, I grew up the fifth of six kids in a farm in Idaho, and I currently live in Salt Lake City, Utah now. I have two sons of my own, and I grew up in the Mormon faith. That had a big part of my upbringing and kind of what shaped me, and a big part of my marriage that was a big reason why I ended up in a mixed orientation marriage. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now. I'm a very out, openly gay man, um, and still raising my two sons with my ex-wife.
I'm excited to hear more about the 8 years of practice. It feels like you're an expert to me, who's only a year and a half out with my divorce. I feel like others who are listening are going to be like just getting started, and so that will be great to hear from somebody who's been in it for so long.
Yeah, those first few years can feel very intense and heavy. So here to tell you that it does get better. And you just get better as you go along with practice.
All right, well, practice we will do. You don't have a choice, especially when you have kids. I was thinking
Yeah,
about that, and they put you in it. They put you in it. Um,
true. Very true.
so part of your process, part of your story, sorry, not your process. We don't have to talk in technical terms anymore. So part of your story is coming out, and coming out through your divorce. And you've talked about it on social media too, where you came out to your weight first. Can you talk a little bit about how coming out came, how you went through that process and how your story evolved over time?
Yeah, for some people, coming out is very much an event. For me, it was a long, drawn out process. Uh, and it was just a kind of a slow, like, um, growing of awareness in who I am and what that means and trying to make sense of it. I I mean, I can say that I was aware that I was attracted to guys from a young age, but um, with my religious upbringing, I saw it more as a sin to be overcome rather than any sort of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also having grown up in that faith, I had no way of really talking about um, my attraction to men or acting on it. I very much kept to the faith, and it really wasn't until after I was married that I had to start taking a hard look at my sexuality. And the first person I came out to was one of my best friends. He had actually introduced me to my wife, and I just told him I said I think I might have same-sex attraction, as I called it. Um, and and then later on, I came out to my bishop, one of my church leaders, just a few weeks into marriage, and he said, "Well, it's a good thing you're married." And that was kind of the attitude, was that, like, as long as I, had found a good woman that was righteous and would stick by me, like, I was going to be just fine. But I didn't feel like I was going to be just fine. Marriage felt very like almost like I had opened a door and started walking into a room and realized I was in the wrong room. Um, and uh, it was about 6 weeks after my marriage that I finally kind of worked up the nerve to talk to my wife about it. So that began a big long process over the next few years of our marriage of um, discussing my sexuality, trying to make sense of it, and eventually starting to identify with it more as who I am and an unchanging part of me and a part of me that I could embrace.
Do you think throughout those few years, was there a moment where you finally were like decided that you could no longer be in a heterosexual marriage and needed to find that space? Was it a moment, or was it a process that you talked through with your ex-wife and came to that decision?
I mean, it was kind of a slow growing of awareness. I definitely wanted to do everything I could to make our situation work for both of us. I did. I took marriage very seriously, and you know, with my religious upbringing, divorce is definitely not a good thing. It's definitely not something I ever wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I did my best at first to kind of like just avoid anything that would cause me to be attracted to guys, and that ultimately led me to being very much not myself,
Yeah.
very secluded, kind of living in fear of myself, and yeah, the depression sunk in really hard, and so um, eventually I realized I did have to find a way to embrace who I am rather than try to mask it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I began looking for communities, well, some support and community. Um, I found a community of other Mormon men who are gay but married to women. Um, Tried to see, if their situation could work for me and my wife. Um, it was clear to me after just a few months in this organization that none of these people were really thriving or happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I couldn't see myself long term ever making that a sustainable thing. It took some time to come to that realization, but when I did, things began to fall into place, and eventually, yeah, we did decide that we would be better off um, divorced and as co-parents rather than trying to make our marriage work and to force it to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes as I'm listening, all I can think of is that takes so much courage to get through that space where you're consistently told you're not the right thing, you're not doing the right thing, even seeking out a community where there's others like you and wanting to be different from them. And that's really outstanding to be able to be in that space. I know you're dedicated now to living your authentic life. Do you think having the courage to do that and move through that time helped you embrace that about yourself?
Um, for sure, yeah. Um, it I mean, even before I had, you know, contemplated separating from my wife, here I was already challenging kind of the status quo of other people who were supposedly like me. And so yeah, it did prepare me to eventually come out to everyone in my life. But yeah, it was really scary and it took a lot of courage to do. I did have plenty of support, thankfully, because um, uh, about 10 years ago, I started blogging back
Mm-hmm.
when Blogger was a thing. Um, and through that, I was able to meet some other men who are gay and Mormon and living in my area. And we kind of started our own little support group. And so I had friends. I had people who I could lean on and gain emotional and other kind of support from them as I processed through all of this. And it was that was really important to my own, like, coming into my queer identity was having other gay people who shared my same values and beliefs
Mhm.
there alongside me.
Yeah, I think that's essential for all of us as we, live in this space that's not the typical or norm. You need to have this community, friends, connection to be able to build off of that. I don't know. Do you know anybody who's done it alone? I don't know. We don't hear those
I
stories, right?
do
You
actually,
do?
yeah. No, I
That's
do know
amazing.
people
Okay.
who
Hmm.
they just, for some people, especially men in my similar situation, a lot of them they have this like major realization and they keep it inside for years, and then all of a sudden they can't handle it anymore and they just like rip off the band-aid, and so they tell
Hmm.
their wife, they move out immediately, and they don't know a single other gay person.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I that takes guts too. Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how I do that because I definitely needed other people around me in order to
Hmm.
feel safe and confident enough that I could do it. So yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go about it.
Hmm.
I think it takes courage both ways.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, how did you, as you went through the process, how did you come out to your kids? How did that conversation go, and how do you talk to them about it today?
Well, my kids were, let's see, they were 2 and 3 when
Hmm.
we split up. So they actually don't have any memories of what it was like to live with both mom and dad.
Hmm.
Um, so in their mind, I've just always been the gay dad.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like those who have older children and it's, a big shock for them.
Hmm.
I think that would definitely be a challenge coming out to kids at that age. I've seen it in plenty of other dads. Um, Thankfully for me, mine, like I said, were young, and um, they've just always been around me and other gay men, and it's normal to them.
Hmm.
There is a book. So not long after I started dating my first boyfriend, um, I got a book called Daddy's Roommate. And it's like I was looking around at the time, and this was 10 years ago, so there wasn't nearly the robust amount of like queer children's literature like
Hmm.
we do now. Like now there's so much, and it's amazing and I love it. But at that time I was looking around, I'm like, there's really not a lot. And this book was probably written in like the 80s, and it had like some really cheesy stereotypes of gay men, like mustaches and um I don't know, working shirtless in the garden. It was just
Hmm.
kind of funny. Um, but like it was just kind of detailing kind of the life of this kid who lived with his mom part of the week and his dad on the weekend, and what his relationship was like with his dad's roommate. It never called him his boyfriend, it just called him daddy's roommate, but it showed that they slept in the same bed together, and it showed that they like to sing together at the piano and go shopping together. um Kind of a real cute book, but that's what I started reading my kids to help them kind of identify and relate to a children's book that is very similar to what their own life was turning into.
Yeah. Books and stories are essential to kids, but us too, right? You're talking about the community
Yeah,
models, seeing
yeah,
everybody around you. Kids need that so badly. Yeah.
definitely.
I have a son on both sides of the age spectrum, a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I think for me coming out too, I could see there's a huge difference between how my 5-year-old at the time took it, how my 10-year-old at the time took it, and their understanding. And one thing I know with older kids that I've leaned on a little bit is that when questions come up, I just have a very honest conversation with my 10-year-old about it. My 7-year-old doesn't ask me about it. You're right. At the younger age, he has memories of us living together, but the transition felt more normal for him, when I was with my ex-husband. But today he doesn't really ask questions, but my preteen has all the questions and he's always asking about them. So I'm always looking for, stories and ways to connect with him, but being honest with them about how I'm feeling and what's happening has really felt like the best way to move forward.
That's
Living,
awesome.
yeah, living that authentic life, right? How do you think
And
that go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that's the best thing you can do is just be honest. And as my kids have gotten older, they've had little questions here and there about like the dynamic of my relationship with their mom when we were married, and just kind of little aspects of my life as a gay man. And I've always, yeah, just tried to be straightforward and honest with them. Of course, like at their age appropriate level.
Right. Yes,
Um,
definitely.
but like there's no reason why I have to hide any part of who I am with them.
Yeah, for sure. Can you describe now that you're co-parenting with your ex-wife, what does that look like? How, some of the technical things. Are you co-parenting? Your ex-wife is married again now. Do the of you co-parent together?
Um, I mean, a bit, yeah. So she is remarried, um, and he's a good guy. He actually coaches my son's soccer team. He's also a dad. He's got two kids from his previous marriage, and then um, with my ex-wife, they have a daughter together. Um, but yeah, it's as far as the technical side of things, a lot of the back and forth is mostly um, just with me and her resolved, and occasionally he helps out here and there, but for the most part, he leaves that to her to work with me and to talk things through. A lot of it's just logistics, really. At this point, so much of the discussing values and other things that had to be established early on in the co-parenting relationship. And we can get to where there's been conflicts there, but yeah, a lot of it is just, we'll have a call up maybe once a month or so just to go over plans, and if things need to be rearranged as far as scheduling, like we're pretty flexible. We want to prioritize our kids, and because he's got a co-parenting schedule with his ex-wife, it can be a little tricky to navigate when there's three families involved. Um, and so we want to ensure that my kids can have time with their step siblings. So I'm flexible with if it's a weekend that I'm supposed to have them, and it's their only chance to be with their stepbrothers, so then I'm happy to change my weekend around. And she's also just as flexible with me. I have a kind of irregular work schedule, and sometimes I'm traveling, and she's happy to take the boys on times when I need her to. So it's a give and take, and it's a lot of compromising, but it's also just being understanding and considerate of each other.
Yeah, it turns in sort of into this business space, right? And if you can be flexible and manage logistics, that's where you hope things can flow so well. It sounds like you have that down pat.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it is just having a shared Google Calendar so we can see
Uh-huh. Yep.
when we're
Mhm.
expecting on things,
Mhm.
and she's better about remembering all of the kids' school events, and so I often have to text her and be like, "What time is this? And where is this?" And she's pretty patient with me. Um, but yeah, it's just a lot of little micro interactions, little text messages here, little calls here, or if we're both at a soccer game, we just catch up on what we need to resolve. Um, but for the most part, like we've gotten to a good place now where there's very few conflicts. And if we do have a conflict, we hear each other out, and we try to remove our emotions from the situation, because things can get pretty tense quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, how have you been able to, what's worked for you in setting boundaries around value discussions? I know for me with my ex-husband, there's been times where I've been like, nope, don't go there, stopping myself by asking for something or moving myself out of the space where how we used to act when we were married, that type of thing, and then learn over time. But what's helped you been able to stay with those boundaries and keep it more, less emotional?
It's been a learning process. I would say when we first divorced, we had a fairly amicable divorce because, I mean, I was gay and that wasn't going away. And, um, as hard as it was for her being a very active Mormon and knowing that she wanted to stay that way, um, we both realized that there were changes that we couldn't make. And so, yeah, it was a pretty amicable divorce. But because of that, our first year or so, we were quite close. Um, I would say close friends, even where she would talk to me about her dates. I would swipe on Tinder to show her what my options were, stuff like that. And well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that kind of closeness may have triggered some like strong emotional feelings. Um, Not necessarily jealousy, but maybe feeling like we had some type of say over how each of us are living our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and eventually, yeah, we kind of had to have a, a bit of a schism from that way of how we were living. And it taught us to, you know, where my role is and where her role is, and when it comes to her life and the way that she chooses to live and the things that she does with her time with the boys, like I don't have a say over.
Mm-hmm.
And she also learned to stop trying to influence me in the way I was living. When it came to the overall well-being of the children, certainly she would have things to say, and I had my own opinions, but it got pretty clear where those boundaries were. Um, and I wouldn't say that we're like close friends anymore. Um, but I would say that we are friendly and compassionate and caring, and we have a good working relationship. And I think that is more important than
Mm-hmm.
being close friends.
Yeah, sounds like it really works well for you. And I'm just thinking about all the transitions, as you transition to separate lives, but then also her getting remarried or other people that are in your life if you're dating or whatever. That's another transition, right? That you're like, this person's values are in there now too. And then you have to continue working over time to kind of transition the relationship because you always have it.
Yeah, it's true.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been through a couple of partners since I've come out. And it's always been an adjustment, and I think it's gotten easier as time has gone on. Um, for her to embrace whoever I'm with, or just to accept, them. And yeah, I think there's still plenty to go, like plenty of distance to cover as far as integrating um, some of the people I date into the whole co-parenting relationship. I think gay men sometimes um, aren't as comfortable with parenting, perhaps, as women are.
All right.
um, so that's a challenge for me and for whomever I date. But yeah, I would say it's only gotten easier and better as we've gone along.
That's good. When you think back over the last 8 years, do you feel like are some of the greatest successes you've had where you've seen your kids really thriving in your relationship with your ex really in a good spot?
It's hard to say whether there's anything like massive. It's
Yeah.
more like uh, it's more like a conglomeration of little things, like us being able to sit next to each other and chat at a soccer game, us being able to take pictures of each other with the kids after a school concert, um, us being able to make adjustments to our schedule, um, her asking me if I can take the kids for an extra weekend so that she can help her ailing father. Little things like that are not huge, but I think they add up over time, and I think that is what is making our co-parenting relationship a big success so far.
Thank you for sharing that. So if the little successes over time add up to be strong, consistent relationship. That's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, I
yeah,
think when I first got divorced, I was thinking the same thing. Like there's some things that we do. Like we had my oldest son's birthday last week, and all of us were in the same space, and my current partner and her ex-husband, and being able to do that feels like a big thing, but it also is like, okay, this is a work we've done over the last 2 years to make it here, and it feels good that that can build up over time, and the kids can have the birthday that they want to have and need to have.
yeah.
Uh,
And really, I think the fact that we've been able to keep the focus of our co-parenting on our kids and bettering their lives is just evidence of it working out.
Kudos to you both. That's amazing to be able to get into that situation.
Well,
Not every
I mean, it takes two, and so she's definitely, been a big part of making it work.
Yeah, that feels so good. Not everybody is able to be in that space, but it's good to be able to know that it can exist for people that are if everybody's working towards the same goals.
Yeah.
Um, all of this co-parenting work, all the work that you have to do, you're dating, you have these other relationships. It feels like um, divorce just adds on that, and it takes a lot more energy, no matter how long you've been. So, what do you do for yourself to stay healthy and strong as a parent?
Um, yeah, this is something I had to learn early on. Um, when I was first divorced, I was married to a woman who cooked almost all my meals. It was a very traditional marriage. And as lucky as I was, I coming out of that, I had a lot to learn. Um, I mean, I had always been involved as a dad as far as like changing the diapers and taking care of the kids and that sort of thing. But when it came to just like fulfilling my own basic needs of like eating and taking care of like my laundry and that sort of thing, like I feel like I had a lot to I got married quite young.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have much of a like bachelor experience to go off of. Um, so it took me a while to learn how to take care of just myself and my basic needs. I mean, there early on in my experience as a dad, I was just like the dollar menu dad, constantly like fast food, um, grilled cheese and quesadillas, sort of stuff, and
Uh-huh.
it wasn't healthy for me. And while I was trying my best to be fit by going to the gym, there's a lot of pressure on gay men to have a certain body image. I wasn't healthy because I wasn't taking care of my body, and so I had to learn to cook. I had to learn how to cook nutritious meals for me and my kids. Um, I had to learn to do other just basic household chores and necessities that she had taken care of because she was a stay-at-home mom and I was the breadwinner. So shifting into that role, I had a lot to learn, and uh, but yeah, and now I eat a lot healthier. I work out regularly. I also take time to be myself, and if that's spending a weekend with friends when I don't have the boys, or going on a trip to explore the world and other parts of myself, like that has also helped me a lot, so that when I do have my kids, I'm recharged and I can be a lot more present with them. And I've also done a lot of traveling with my boys. We've gone to several national parks together. We've visited several cities and all over the US, and it's really helped our relationship, and I hope to be able to offer them a greater perspective than what they're getting in rural Utah.
Yeah.
And so that has helped not only me to be well rounded and healthy, but it's helped my kids as well.
So you're building in intentional things that hit on your values and learn, taking the learning curve to build those out for yourself. Yeah, I think when we're in a marriage too, we build them out, especially when we're young with our partner. And so now you have to figure out, how to do that on your own. And it sounds like you're
For sure.
doing that.
It was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm ADD, so like being like just staying organized and handling just all the day-to-day tasks is even more challenging for me, I feel like. Um, but I've learned a lot and I've grown a lot.
It's awesome. Can you tell me, and as we leave, I have one more question. We've talked about a lot, but when you think back through this whole process and where you're at now, what do you think is one of the most important things that our listeners need to keep in mind as they go through their divorce and as they're rebuilding their life post-divorce?
Oh, that that is a really good question. I think a lot of times when people are going through a divorce, it's really easy to feel guilty, especially if you're the queer one and the marriage is ending because, for that, excuse me, because your queerness is, a conflict in the marriage, or for other reasons as well. I mean, it's easy to feel guilty and um, to accept less in the maybe it's you're accepting less in the divorce proceedings than you deserve, or you're accepting less time than you deserve. Don't devalue yourself. Um, and don't allow yourself to be shamed, especially by so me coming from a religious background and then leaving that behind. um, I felt a lot of religious shame coming out of my divorce, and yeah, it definitely weighed on me, and I accepted less than I should have, as far as time, as far as different stipulations um, in our divorce decree. And I would encourage everyone to not to devalue yourself, that you are um, worthy of being a parent just as much as anyone, and your queerness does not make you less of a parent. And to stick true to your values, sometimes it does take time to figure out exactly what your values are, especially like when you're like me. I was coming from a very religious background to now I'm not religious at all. um, but figure out your values and stay true to them, and um, know that you can be an excellent parent. um, and also it's really easy to get caught up on what the other parent is doing with their time, or you know there's a lot of jealousy that can get involved. Just focus on you. Focus on what makes you happy and what makes you healthy. And and when you focus on you and on building a whole life for yourself and for your kids, like that's going to make things a much better for your kids. If you can be a strong, well-rounded person by yourself, then you're going to be able to offer a lot more to your kids. And that does take time, and be patient with yourself, because you're not going to have it as soon as you move out.
Yeah.
It's time to rebuild an entire life, and so be patient with yourself, and know that all you can do is your best. Even if like even if the kids are still wearing pajamas at 5 in the afternoon, and they've just eaten chicken nuggets that day, like at least they have a roof over their head and food in their stomachs. Like just do your best, and that's all you can do.
Mhm. Uh, that's such great advice. As you're saying that, I'm thinking through like, how do you get on the hardest days, on those days when you feel like you're not gonna make it, or you're exhausted, like you said, the chicken nugget days. What do you do to remind yourself at the end of the day that you're in a good spot? This is for you. You don't need to feel guilty. What helps you get through that?
just remember that you are exactly the parent that you need to be for your kids, that your kids need. Um, and they, as long as you are, providing for their basic needs, and you're doing your best to be present, even on those rough days, like you are what they need, and you are their person, and just embrace who you are, because as you live authentically, embrace who you are, your kids will notice that and see that, and that there's so much that they can learn from you when you do that.
So good. I feel like we should leave on that note. You are the parent that your kids need you to be. And that's okay to embrace that and embrace who you are. And you living your authentic life is the model that your kids need to live their own authentic life, right? As they grow up, as they become adults. That's a really good thing for us all to remember.
Yeah. For me, one of the hardest things when coming out was feeling like I was kind of ruining this perfect family that I had worked so hard to build. But I realized that I started asking myself, like, what kind of overarching lesson do I want my kids to take away from me? Is it one of conforming to societal standards and expectations, or the way that I was raised, or is it one of living truthfully and authentically? And then that was really what drove me to my decision to live the way that I do now. Is I want my kids to have an example of someone who lives with authenticity and isn't afraid to embrace who they really are.
But a good spot to be in. It feels so good to be in that spot, doesn't it? To be open, to be with your kids, to have moved through it. You've done it. You're there. I mean, we are always evolving, but it's good. It's awesome to feel like you're in
Yeah,
that spot. It's really
it
wonderful.
is awesome. The challenges are still there. There's always going to be challenges.
Yeah.
There's always hard days. There's still chicken nugget days,
Yeah.
but always growing, always learning, and doing my best to improve. And I've got amazing kids. I'm super lucky. Um, they are really my rock and what keeps me going, and what keeps me grounded. So I'm super grateful to be a dad, and I love it.
That's awesome. I appreciate you so much taking the time to share your experiences with our listeners and your story with us. Being one of my first guests on the podcast, I thank you so much for joining us and for being on the podcast today.
I appreciate you reaching out and involving me. It's a pleasure to be involved. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing to help others. I know it can certainly touch a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to say for our listeners, if you want to find Devon on Instagram, you can use at Daddy N, Daddies, DADDIES. I'll put that in the show notes on the website as well. So you can find him on social and follow his story more.
It's dad and daddies. I'm
Dad
the
and
dad.
daddies.
And there's plenty of daddies in my life.
Awesome. So find him on Instagram, follow his story, and thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thank you so much.